Hey everyone, so the first thing I'm going to do is to prime my eye area. I'm using the Wet n Wild Photo Focus eyeshadow primer and I'm working that into the skin now using a synthetic brush. I was asked recently about budget primers and this is a fantastic one. It really does allow the shadows that you apply to adhere well. They last all day long without fading and they blend really easily. So the first palette I'm going in with today is the Sleek Ultra Mattes Volume 2 palette. It's one of my favourites and I've went through maybe 3 of these palettes at this stage, but I'm going in now firstly with that glorious green shadow. So I've just taken this on a fluffy blending brush and I began by tapping it down onto the crease, and then I'm working the shadow down onto the outer portion of my lid, and then I'm bringing it back in and across the crease. So I'm using just little back and forward sweeping motions to start buffing that colour around the eye, and when I get to that outer corner I'm flicking my brush upwards and outwards so that I have a nice elongated shape to the eyes. I want the shadow to be nice and winged out, and at this point I'm just laying down the groundwork. I'm just getting the shadow onto the eye in the shape that I want, and then I can build on that from there. So now that I'm really happy with the shape and that, obviously the shadow now could be a lot more intense. So I'm going to rectify that by adding a second layer of the green shadow. I'm tapping the shadow down now once again on the outer corner of my eye, and then I'm working it very gradually into the crease of the eye, just feathering it across. And I actually think the green is really intense on its own, but if you wanted, you could have added a white base after the primer. But with these shadows, even though they are cheap in terms of price, they aren't cheap in quality. They really pack a punch. So now I'm just going to use a little bullet shaped brush to sweep some of that green eyeshadow down along the lower lash line, and because I'm sweeping it across the lash line you can tend to get a little bit of fallout just with the motions that you're using. So I'm adding now a couple of layers of the green, so I just pick up a little on my brush, tap off the excess and apply, and then I repeat the process, and that way then I get a nice intense colour payoff in a gradual manner without the fallout. So now I'm taking this palette here from Makeup Revolution and I'm going to start deepening up the green. I'm taking the matte dark green shadow and I'm using a smaller fluffy blending brush to add a bit of depth to the eye. So I'm starting on the outer corner as usual using circular motions, quite large ones actually, and I'm sweeping what's left on my brush then across into the crease. And as always I'm doing this a couple of times just to build up the intensity. Moving on now down to the lower lash line, I'm sweeping some of that dark green down along there too to deepen up the area, and I'm just making my way from outer to inner corner. So then I'm taking the Making Waves palette from Sleek, and I understand I'm palette hopping, but the colours I wanted to use were all in different palettes. So I'm taking this beautiful shimmery green eyeshadow now, and I'm using a flat C-shaped brush to pat this colour down on the inner half of the eyelid. And you don't need to have the same products as me to recreate this look. Similar colours from different brands from your own stash at home will pretty much do the same job. So I'm taking the shadow now to the right of the green, and this has got green flecks in it but a reddy brown undertone. It's a duochrome shadow, very similar to one in the Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette. I've done lots of tutorials on that, so you should know what I'm talking about hopefully. But yeah, I'm just patting this down on the remaining half of the eyelid, and then I'm going back in with a lighter green, and I'm just reapplying this and making sure that those two shimmery shadows fade nicely into one another. Now for some depth, I'm moving back to my Makeup Revolution palette and I'm taking the black eyeshadow in the palette on another small flat C-shaped brush, and I'm going to start working this into the lash line on the outer third of the eye, and I'm just sweeping it back and forward and very gradually pulling it in the direction of the crease but at an angle on that outer corner. And I'm just placing the colour down now with this brush just wherever I want it, and then I'm going to switch to a small tapered blending brush and I'm using this to blend out the edges, and I'm flicking my brush outwards then to give me a nice cat eye shape. But I'm also then taking the excess product left on my brush across the crease just so we've no harshness anywhere. You want everything to fade nicely in together. So then I'm taking this black liner now from Physicians Formula. These came in a set of 3 and they are marketed for green eyes. I have blue eyes, but it's a black liner, so I mean it really doesn't matter. I'm just running the pencil now back and forward inside the eye to coat the waterline. Then I'm taking a small angled brush and some more of that black eyeshadow, and I'm starting off by pressing this into the lash line on the upper lashes, and I'm just again making my way in across the lash line, across right into the tear duct, and then I'm also coating the lower lash line too, so that I don't just have a harsh black on the waterline and then green underneath the lash line. I want there to be a bit of a transition. So then I'm going back again into the Makeup Revolution palette, and I'm taking that beautiful shimmery green eyeshadow on a small bullet shaped brush. The brush is from Wet n Wild. I've added my lashes. I put on the Sosu Glam lashes in the style New York, and now I'm just adding that green around the tear duct to add some sparkle. And then I'm taking the Wet n Wild Mega Length mascara, and I'm using this to coat my bottom lashes and then also to blend my own lashes in with the false ones. But then that's it. I know it'll be a bit of a different Paddy's Day again this year. We're still here in a level 5 lockdown due to COVID here in Ireland, but I'll be doing my makeup sitting at home and having a wee drink, and yeah, just making the most of it. So I'll catch you all very soon.